Good evening and welcome to No Huddle Necessary. Of course, I'm your host, Jeff Barnes. Once again, here as we bring you the arguments from our nuts and bolts sports writers as they prepare to try and face off with some space time at the end. Before we start, we're going to have two nuts and bolts sports writers in tonight, as one has already been kicked to the back. So, therefore, we're just going to have two tonight. All right? So, while we're at it, let's get it started. You know, he's a familiar face to the show. We're talking about, of course, the most famous name on the Nuts and Bolts staff. We're talking about Mr. Keith Richards. Keith Richards, how are you?
You know, if I was an Eagles fan, I wouldn't want to be on the show
either. Listen, man, it's been a rough week for anybody in the NFC East with a team name. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay? All right.
How is the team with no name in first place right now?
Listen, I said it over the weekend, watching them in that first quarter with the no name on the uniforms, no logo, anything, reminded me of 1991 Madden when Washington just had colors and a city name. But while we're at it, we're going to bring in our other Nuts and Bolts sports writer, and that is, of course, Dominic Churosky. Dominic, how are you, my man?
Hey, I'm good. Happy to be back.
Yeah, they came in with the bruh man from the fifth floor nod. You know, so here we are. You know, week one is in the books. You know,
Yes.
We got a lot of action happen this weekend. How do you guys feel about week one so far, man?
It was different. There were some teams that you felt like the season never was delayed or anything happened, like the Ravens and the Chiefs. But then there are some teams that it clearly affected, I think.
How about you, Dominic? How you feel about it?
Listen, man, I'm just happy we have football back. Like I said, it really, just watching games on Sunday felt surreal. Felt like it wasn't gonna happen. But yeah, I agree. There's a ton of stuff that we got to get into. Some teams look really good. Some teams look really bad. But yeah, I was just excited football was on.
All right. Well, let's get it started. You know, with that, we're going to go in our first quarter. Man, I get chills every time that plays. All right, so since somebody already mentioned that team with wings from Philadelphia, both the Eagles and Lions blew double-digit leads in week one in dramatic fashion to boot. Okay? You guys are going to make the argument which one was worse. So this time we're going to start it off with Dominic. So Dominic, get us started on this.
Okay, so with Philadelphia, I feel like this is kind of a case where Philadelphia, to me, is a little bit of an overrated team. I look at them, don't have a great offensive line. Outside of Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz, they don't really have top-tier weapons for Carson Wentz. And Carson Wentz injury history, we'll see if he can stay healthy. That defense, specifically the secondary, isn't great. And Washington, I think, is a really good team. They've got two studs at the defensive end position with Chase Young and Montez Sweat. Ryan Kerrigan was amazing in this game. I think Washington, again, also is well coached. I think Ron Rivera is doing a tremendous job of implementing the culture change there. So that, to me, isn't that big of a letdown as far as the Eagles go. The Detroit Lions, on the other hand, how do you let Mitchell Trubisky beat you in the fourth quarter? Like, I don't understand. Mitchell Trubisky, who for the majority of his career, has looked like a guy who doesn't has no business being a starting quarterback in the NFL. You let Mitchell Trubisky score 21 points in the fourth quarter in a game that you were winning all the way through, right? Like with the Eagles and Washington football team game, it was 17-0 in the first half. Washington scores a touchdown to cut it to a 10-point lead. And then they get an interception to start the second half. The momentum starts to swing their way. Like I said, the Eagles offensive line just couldn't block anybody. So you could kind of see it was a gradual kind of comeback. With the Lions and Bears, it was like that in the fourth quarter. It was night and day. Like the Bears only came into the fourth quarter only having scored 6 points. I just don't understand how, as the Lions, you let Mitchell Trubisky beat you in the fourth quarter. I understand the Lions are without Jeff Okudah. I understand that they're actually missing a couple of their corners. So I get all of that. But at the same time, this is unacceptable. And don't get me wrong, the Bears are a good team all around, but Mitchell is just not the guy. So having him beat you is just unacceptable to me.
Yeah, it was. We'll get more into that one. I'm going to let Keith jump in before we really dig the knife in on those two, because there's a lot of stabbing to go on there. Keith.
Yeah, as Dominic alluded to, it depends on how you think or which is worse. The Lions were leading all the way up through the third quarter, didn't score a point in the fourth quarter. On the other hand, the Eagles didn't score a point in the entire second half. And if you just look at the rosters, the rosters are about the same, I would say, between the Lions and the Eagles. I personally think Matt Stafford is a little bit better of a quarterback. They still really don't have receivers in Philadelphia. The one guy they did only had one catch for 55 yards. Jalen Rager, who they're counting on. Sean Jackson only had 2 catches. But I think the way you give Philly a little bit more of a pass is Washington literally has nothing to play for this season. And when you come against those teams sometimes that are just playing for the sake of playing, they're going to win some games that they shouldn't win. And not that the Bears really have a chance to win the NFC North. They don't. But getting back on Mitch Trubisky, you just cannot let him score 21 points on you in the fourth quarter. That's just inexcusable. Yeah, the Bears have a few more weapons on offense and maybe underperformed a little in the first 3 quarters, but when you're up, what was it? It was 23-6, and you end up losing 27-23. That just can happen. It's not like you're going against Tom Brady in this prime. It's Mitch Trubisky. And really, they're both really bad losses. Both losses are inexcusable. Just the optics of getting skunked in the fourth quarter are just a little bit worse.
Yeah, I mean, neither one of these were beautiful comebacks. They were both ugly. Granted, Washington's defense played very well rushing the quarterback, but even with that pass rush, they were moving the football in the first half against them. So where did the Eagles all of a sudden find this brick wall in the second half? That's what I want to know. What changed? Because all of a sudden they forgot how to block. When it came to the Lions, you were moving the ball all through the first 3 quarters, and then all of a sudden you get to the fourth quarter, you can't move the ball at all, and then you can't stop them to boot. And then when you finally do move the ball at the end of the game with a chance to win it, your rookie running back drops the ball in the end zone. So, yeah, I mean, there was nothing pretty about these comebacks. You see some comebacks, you go, now that's a great comeback. That's how you come back and win a football. Neither one of these games were comebacks you're going to talk about for the ages, unless you're just ridiculing the loser. So, I mean, yeah, I'm with you guys on this one. I mean, this was the good, the bad, and the ugly. Well, there was no goodness. This was as bad, ugly, and please never show that picture again. And if you're a fan of the two teams that lost, man, that's a taste that Listerine couldn't help you with. So yeah, I get it. And Armando chimes in with Trubisky. Has 4 games against the Lions where he has 3 or more TD passes. If he could only play Detroit every week, yeah, that and Detroit stopped scoring. Even if he would have threw the touchdowns he threw, they catch the ball in the end of the game, they still go home with a loss, and they talk about what could have been instead of walking out of there talking about you like that in the Kirk Cousins voice. So yeah, I'm with you guys on that one.
With that point about Mitchell against Detroit, the reason that typically happens, when you look at the way that Detroit plays defense, they don't really hide what they do. Detroit has always kind of had this approach of, we're lining up, this is what we're going to do, try and stop it. And so when you're predictable as a defense like that, it allows Matt Nagy to kind of script out how that offense is supposed to go. And Mitchell doesn't have to make decisions. Mitchell doesn't really have to read the defense. Matt Nagy can just get into his headset right before the headset's cut out and be like, hey, they're lining up like this. This is where you need to go. This is where you need to be looking. When that happens, you see Mitchell have success. When he is put into situations where he doesn't have to survey the defense and everything is going according to plan, he's going to be fine. So that's typically why you see him play really well against Detroit. But even still, it's 21 points for Mitchell Trubisky in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, like, I expect more out of the Lions than I do out of the Eagles, which makes it look worse for the Lions. Again, I think it's pretty clear it's either going to be the Vikings or the Packers that are going to win that NFC North. Honestly, I don't think the Eagles have a chance of winning the – well, maybe they do because Washington is leading the NFC East right now. But it's just how it happened. I mean, you can understand scoring no points in the second half. It's not good, but teams make halftime adjustments, so it makes a little bit more sense. Getting skunked in the fourth quarter, I mean, how many more adjustments can they make in one quarter that you can't score a single point? One touchdown, they win that game. One touchdown. They couldn't score one touchdown.
Well, you were saying how, it makes things simple for Mitch Trubisky. If that's the case, do you really want him as your starting quarterback? If you can't trust him, it's a line of scrimmage. I mean, at some point, you're going to have to come up and serve. This is the NFL. You have to survey defenses. If you can't trust your quarterback to do that, is he really your quarterback?
I mean, if I was still doing fantasy football and he was literally the only quarterback I had to take to play for that week, I would just not start the quarterback.
I'm out on Mitchell Trubisky. I was the person that said, at first I was upset because I was like, how did Mitchell win the job? But then I was like, you know what? This is my conspiracy theory with the Bears. I feel like they're putting Mitch in because they're trying to secretly tank for like Justin Fields. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, no, I'm out on Mitch 1,000%.
All right. Well, since we done talked about two teams blowing leads, let's just talk about another team that lost. Second quarter. And I'm telling you, 2020 for the Dallas Cowboys comes in just like 2019 went. Another close game, another chance to make a play late in the game, and you blow it. But when they finally do make a play at the end of the game, the referee says, not so fast. So it wouldn't be Sunday night with the Dallas Cowboys without a bit of controversy. All right. So as you know, fourth quarter, under 2 minutes, Dallas is driving. Dak Prescott hits Michael Gallup on a deep ball. The pseudo fans are cheering because there were no fans there in SoFi Stadium. Wait, there's laundry on the field. Offensive pass interference was called. So you guys are going to tell me, was this a legit call? Or did they really get hosed? So, Dominic, you start us off on this one.
All right. So this is one of those judgment calls. By the letter of the law, yes, that is offensive pass interference. You can see Gallup does kind of get his hand up under Jalen Ramsey's arm, kind of does push him back a little bit. But in my opinion, if I'm the ref, I'm not calling that. I feel like it's a little ticky-tacky again. It's one of those judgment calls. So if you're a Cowboys fan, I understand why you would be upset. But that's not why you guys lost this game. You guys lost this game because nobody could stop Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald was blowing through the offensive line and threw Ezekiel Elliott around like a rag doll. You had, 3 sacks given up, 7 quarterback hits. If you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, don't feel like you got cheated out of this game or that the refs cost you this game. No, your offensive line cost you this game. They did not play well. They could not protect Dak. And that's kind of what it is. It happens sometimes, it's a judgment call. It's, like I said, it's not one that I would have agreed with. But, blown calls happen. There was a game. I'm a Steelers fan. There was a play where the Steelers and Giants were playing on Monday night, and Joe Hayden got called for a bogus defensive pass interference call, in my opinion. Kept the drive alive for them. The Giants went ahead and scored on the next play. Those things happen. I understand because this happens in the fourth quarter, you maybe kind of do feel like, oh, this has a bigger effect on the game. But it is what it is. This happens. By the letter of the law, though, that is offensive pass interference, yes.
Okay. Keith.
Was it a good call? No, I don't think it's a good call, especially that late in the game, especially how they were calling the game. It was just a bad call. But let's skip past that. Let's talk about the bad calls that the Cowboys made. They go into the line or the game down offensive lineman. They put their backup offensive lineman on a kickoff or on a field goal team, and he gets hurt. 4th and 3 or 4th and 2, whatever it was. They had a chance to kick a field goal to tie the game. They didn't do it. Was the call bad? Yes. But the coaching was worse, especially in crunch time and situational football. And really, there were times in the game where the Dallas Cowboys offense, you felt like it was going to be really good, at least compared to how their defense was playing. Their defense was getting chopped up. But you would think that Jason Garrett was still the coach there, or going by some of the calls they made. Like, you had a chance to get – it's not guaranteed you're going to make the field goal, but it's better to try to take the 3 points than to get 0. It seems like common sense to me. If you're down offensive lineman, don't put your best backup tackle on the field goal team for him to get injured, because Aaron Donald was wearing still out all game long. They absolutely had no answer for Aaron Donald. It just seems like the staple of the Dallas Cowboys used to be the offensive line for so long in the last couple of seasons. Granted, they have had some injuries over the past couple of seasons, but it doesn't seem like they're doing a lot to address those injuries or to try to build the depth on that line that they used to have. And that's what happens when you pay Amari Cooper $100 million. You pay Zeke. You're going to look at paying Dak. You have other players restructure their contracts. You have to decide, do you want a team of flashy all-stars, or do you want a team that's going to stop your quarterback who wants $40 million from getting his face broken every week?
Well, I'm going to tell you what, and if people go, well, you're a Cowboy fan, you're gonna feel that you got screwed on that one. I'm going to tell you why they got screwed. All right. So if you guys watched the Tampa Bay New Orleans game, if you remember, There was a play. Marshawn Lattimore was beaten. He was in trail position. right?
Yeah.
So what did he do? When he knew he was in trail, there's a move that DBs do because they don't want to be seen extending the arm and grabbing the guy. So what they do is they wait for that back arm to come forward, and they hook it. I'm going to show you. Make sure I get it on camera. They hook it with the bent arm, so you can't pull that arm up. Lattimore got called for defensive pass interference for that. Fast forward to the fourth quarter there. Jalen Ramsey is in trail position. Michael Gallup is going for that ball. He tries to do the same hook move, but Gallup pushes the arm off.
Yeah.
Right. So if that's the case as a ref, you're supposed to let that go. That's hand play. If you're going to call, that's defensive pass interference. He's attempting to hook the arm so he can hold them. Okay, that's pass interference. That's defensive holding. It's a flag. So how do you call it one flag and not the other? So if that's the case, let them go. They're pushing each other. If I can't call one or the other. You know, it's both the moves are technically illegal. So
I agree that it was a terrible call, especially at that point in the game. But the second you put your hands in the refs in a football game is the second you lose. This shouldn't have even been a concern whether or not they make the call correctly. That's on you.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, plain and simple, you know, every week there are blown calls. I say it all the time. Bad coaches get fired, bad players get cut, bad referees ref the next week. So in this situation, you have, plain and simple, you know, it was a bad call. I mean, it's either you let the guy hold you and pray that you get a flag, or you fight it off and go make a play on the football. He fights it off, makes a great play on the football, and at the end of the day, he gets flagged when the guy was trying to hold him. So that's messed up, you know. But nevertheless, either way, there'll be somebody next week that gets the same treatment. There'll be another ref that blows a call at a crucial part of the game. You know, it is what it is. You know, listen, I'm not gonna, people will say it's karma because technically the interception that Chidobe Awuzie had was hands to the face on the quarterback. Right, on Golf's helmet.
Oh yeah, that wasn't hands to the face. That was a good old WWE like SmackDown that he got on Jared Goff.
Yeah, you know, so it is what it is. Listen, like I said, referees are the only guys can make mistakes and keep their job. So, with that being said, it is part of the thing. And this is why when, you know, if when I was as a coach, when I have the defense where you got to have guys chasing the football and the referees in the way, I tell the guy to run him over. He's part of the
part of the field, part of the play.
It is. He'll move his big butt out the way next time. That's how it goes. Hey, listen, you know, I'll feel sorry for the ref after the game. But anyway, Well, that being said,
those are judgment calls. Jalen did a great job of selling it. He did a good job. He sold it nice too.
Would Jalen Ramsey admit that he was beaten? No. Okay, let's be realistic. Jalen Ramsey wasn't going to admit that he was beaten.
According to Jalen Ramsey, he's never been beat once in his life.
Yeah, that was on film on national TV. I think we can confirm that he's been beaten. And I'm sorry. You know, if that flag isn't thrown, people are yelling toast. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm gonna digress here and move on to our third quarter because, you know, we can do this all day. You know, in the words of Cap. So, third quarter here. All right. All off season, we've made fun of two teams with some really bad headlines. I mean, everything from off the field, the personnel moves, yada, 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 you name it. The Washington football team and the Jacksonville Jaguars were this season's off-season whipping boys. But nevertheless, both are 1-0 after week one with impressive come-from-behind victories. So, with that being said, Keith, which one can carry that momentum on into week two?
Oh man, it's such a tough question to answer, mainly because if you're going from a pure talent standpoint, Washington is a better football team than the Jaguars. Their quarterback, Gardner Minshew, might be a little bit more established in Jacksonville than Dwayne Haskins, but the defense in Washington is clearly superior to the defense in Jacksonville. Problem is, you have a team in the NFC East, Dallas Cowboys, that people, including myself, unfortunately, legitimately think have a shot at winning the Super Bowl. The Redskins, they're not the Redskins anymore. Washington football team still has to play them twice. You look at the other side of it, and the Jaguars, they play the Titans, and they also are going to play the Texans. Both are better teams than they are, but I think the gap between the Jaguars and their superiors and Washington and their superiors is a little bit smaller. I would expect that at the end of the day, the Jags are going to win one or two more games simply from the fact that there's less distractions in Jacksonville than there are Washington. And like I said, with Washington coming back on the Eagles, when you are a team that literally has nothing to play for, there are going to be one or two games where you take teams by surprise and get the win, which honestly is what I think happened in Philadelphia. They got up by 17 and then they got lazy. I don't think that would happen in the next game they play. It's just, it is called the NFC least, but there is more talent in the teams above Washington as a whole, combined, and I think there is between the Colts, the Titans, and Texans. I just think the ceiling is so small for Washington that there's not much more they can improve on. This might be the best win or the only win that they get all season.
All right, Dominic.
So I strongly disagree with Keith on Washington. I think Washington is a really underrated team. I think they have a good defense. I think that front seven is really, really strong. I'm a huge believer in Dwayne Haskins. I like the receiver that they have in Terry McLaurin. Running back room is a little bit thin right now. They need to get that figured out, but they're just a really well-coached team. And I think, in the first half, they kind of, Philly was moving the ball on them and things like that. And then in that second half, Washington looked different. I think part of that is Washington. Keith keeps saying Washington doesn't have anything to play for this year. I disagree with that. I think Washington is playing for Ron this year. With Ron going through the stuff that he is, with battling the chemotherapy, guys getting an IV at halftime. I don't know how, as a player, you don't see your coach go out there, get an IV at halftime, and then come out there and still be fiery and still coach and all that other stuff and not be inspired. So Washington, I think 100% can at least win a couple more games. I think they can play really well this year. I think they'll be a team that gives a bunch of other teams, especially teams that might overlook them, a lot of problems. Like I said, Chase Young is as good as advertised. He has a really good running mate in Montez Sweat. That defense is going to cause a lot of problems for a lot of offensive lines and give a lot of quarterbacks nightmares. So I believe Washington will be the better of these two teams. I think Washington is the team that can maybe carry this and maybe turn this into a somewhat of a salvageable season where they win, 6-7 games, something like that. Jacksonville, it's a fluke. It's week one. Colts probably were overlooking this. Like, hey, man, we got Jacksonville week one. They stink. They're trying to tank this year. It is what it is. Gardner Minshew, I will give credit to. Gardner Minshew, I feel like I don't think Gardner Minshew is a franchise quarterback. I think Gardner Minshew is going to be like the next iteration of Ryan Fitzpatrick, where he's a guy who he will be electric and will win you some games that you're not supposed to win in like 4 or 5 game spurts. But then that's really all you're going to get out of him. I think just week one, got a new quarterback for the Colts. Trying to learn a new system, didn't really have a full offseason or preseason to get things together. Maybe came in overlooking the Jaguars. That won't happen again. I think every other team watched this game, and every other team that's going to play Jacksonville is like, yeah, so we don't want to be the Colts because we don't want to be the team that lost to the Jaguars this year because they're just so devoid of talent. They've got Gardner Minshew. They've got DJ Chark. Other than that, offensively, they're very inept. Defensively, they've got a couple nice pieces or young guys, but this team just is not built to succeed. Like I said it the last time I was on here. I just want Jacksonville to come out and say it with their chest that like, hey, we're tanking this year and we're not even going to be like ashamed to say it. So of the two, I think Washington can definitely rattle off a couple more wins, especially playing in a division where you have the Giants and the Eagles, who I think are a little bit overrated. I think Washington could be in a season where they win 6-7 games. Jacksonville, even though they pull out this week one win, I still think Jacksonville will be lucky to win 3 games all season.
All right. So, Washington is up against a pretty tough team this weekend. If they're going to keep this momentum going, they're going to have to do it against the Cardinals, who just knocked off the NFC champions. So that's going to be a tough matchup. Jacksonville coming back against Indianapolis. So that was a pretty big move. It was a tough game. I thought it started to show like it was going to be a blowout. They came back, made it tough. It was, they were going toe-to-toe and pulled it out in the end. Oh, by the way, I talked about Indianapolis in that pre-AFC South preview. Where was T.Y. Hilton at the end of that game?
I'm assuming he's on the bench.
I didn't even have to use my psychic powers on that one. I knew where he was going to end up. It is what it is. But it's going to be real interesting with those two teams. I don't think Jacksonville has a lot more left in the tank. I think that was their big surprise for everybody. They may sneak in a couple more wins inside of the division because let's face it, inside of your division, anything happens. Outside of the division, I think is when they're going to get exposed. Washington's big test is going to be outside the division this week. Can they continue to do that against teams that they're not familiar with? So that's going to be one of the big things to see this weekend. Yeah. So now we're going to start to get ready to move on here to the fourth quarter. So everybody throw up your fours. It is the fourth quarter. Fourth quarter, everybody. Fourth quarter. I always want to say that. So, we're gonna go to the team that didn't have a chance this weekend. They got beat from start to finish. We're talking about the Cleveland Browns. All right. So Cleveland goes in last year. The first time they met the Ravens, they beat up the Ravens pretty good. The second time around, Ravens got even. They get the chance to go up against Baltimore to start the season this year, and laying an egg would be nice. It would be a real nice way to say it. They got beat from pillar to post. If it was the Rock, he would say, "I laid the smackdown on him." So the fact of the matter is, when you're looking at the Cleveland Browns, people are pointing at Odell Beckham. They're pointing at this. They're pointing, is this coach really ready? You got to start at the guy who struggled all game long. Let's start with Baker Mayfield. He came into the league as a rookie, actually caught fire late in his rookie year, got that offensive coordinator hired as a head coach, only to get him fired last year because they all played horrible, especially him. So they said this is going to be a make or break year. It's going to be, this will be the year he has to entrench himself as the franchise quarterback, or do they start to look at other options? So he comes out week one and gives you that performance. So you tell me if it's too early to panic with Baker Mayfield, or is his future just like on those commercials cleaning up that stadium? All right. So this time, Keith, start us off.
Oh, even for me, that's petty, but it's probably true. I say it's too early to panic, mainly because it is just the first week. Like we said, this NFL season is unlike pretty much any NFL season we've experienced so far. It had no real training camp, no preseason games, no OTAs really. So it would make sense that the teams that were really good last year are going to come in looking really good this season. So the fact that they lost to the Ravens is not a surprise. The fact that they lost 38-6, I think it's a surprise. I wouldn't panic quite yet, but if I'm a Browns fan or in Browns management, my finger is as close to hitting that panic switch as you can get without actually hitting it. I mean, he got good games out of Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, who had combined 23 rushes for 132 yards. The problem is he hooked up well with Jarvis Landry, got him on 5 or 6 targets, but he only hit Odell Beckham 3 times on 10 targets for 22 yards. I can't remember the game they played last year, but they essentially said when he has 3 seconds or less, he does really well. When you give him time to throw, he does not do well. And what does that say about your quarterback? When essentially what they're saying is when he makes a single read, he can throw the ball really well. When he has to go past his initial read, he sucks. And that's a little bit more of what you saw in the game on Sunday. If he goes out and does better next week, I think we can come back a little on the panic. But if they go out next week and they lose to the Bengals or they struggle against the Bengals, then I think it's open season on panicking. I didn't think he was a great quarterback to begin with when he was drafted. And if he can't beat the Bengals, then I think that just solidifies my thought.
Wow. What more can I say about that? Dominic, come on in. Tell us how you feel about it.
So similar. I feel like I don't think it's time to panic just yet. So we have to lay out some facts. Okay. Baker is now in his 3rd season. He's also on his 3rd head coach. He's also on his 3rd offensive system. That's not a recipe for success. I don't care how great you are. That's just not something that you're going to thrive in. I feel like, Baker, I was someone who liked Baker when he was coming out of college. I thought when the Browns took him number 1 overall, I was like, you know what? I love that pick. It's bold. It's not a pick that a lot of people would have made, but Baker to me was my favorite quarterback in that draft. I feel like it's a little too early to hit the panic button. Now, ask me this question Friday morning after they play the Bengals, because if they play the Bengals and they lose, then yes, we can start worrying and maybe Baker does need to go, especially if he's struggling. But when you look at all of this, right, you have a new head coach, which means you're implementing a new offensive system, and you didn't really have an offseason to really get that kind of mesh together and get that continuity, right? Like some teams are running the same system like the Ravens, and they have, for the most part, the exact same personnel. They didn't have any super crazy changes or anything like that. So they're going to have that continuity. They're going to be fluid. They're going to be on the same page. I feel like week 1, this is kind of just a growing pain. And also, it's the Ravens. Didn't the Nuts and Bolts Sports Power Ranking just come out a couple days ago? And weren't the Ravens ranked 2nd on that list? So they're playing the 2nd best team in the league. The Ravens are a team that's probably going to end up playing in the Super Bowl if they can make it past the Chiefs later on this year. I understand it looks bad and you would have wanted your team to play better, but it's week 1, just like Aaron Rodgers said a couple years ago, RELAX, relax. Now, Thursday night, we'll see what happens, because that is the big moment. If Thursday night comes and they struggle and they can't beat the Cincinnati Bengals, who, by the way, with Joe Burrow looked really good before his kicker blew out both his calves with cramps and missed a field goal to win the game at the end. They're going to have to find a way to beat Cincinnati, but they beat Cincinnati. I think you can take a deep breath and say, hey, look, it's okay. We've got time. We got a new coach, new system. We're trying to figure this thing out, but there's a ton of talent here. We actually give Baker a head coach who knows what he's doing, as opposed to Freddie Kitchens, who, in all honesty, only got the job because Baker liked him and was not ready to be a head coach. So I think you just got to give this time. If Kevin Stefanski and the new GM feel good about Baker and they believe that Baker can run the system that they are trying to implement, I think you give them the time. I think you relax. You let this play out. Because I just feel like Baker then joins the long list of Cleveland quarterbacks that haven't worked out. And not all of those quarterbacks didn't work out because they were terrible. Some of them just were in terrible situations. Baker has been in a terrible situation so far. I do think he needs to play better. He needs to step it up. He needs, and the thing with Baker is because of his personality, he's someone who is going to be loud and abashed, and he's going to talk trash. And he's someone where if he's playing great, you want him to be the face of your franchise because, he has that personality that people are going to gravitate to. But when he's playing bad, it's kind of like, you probably should start shutting up. He's a quarterback, so he's going to get the lion's share of the praise when they win. He's going to get the lion's share of the hate when they lose. So that comes with the territory, but I don't think it's quite time to give up on Baker just yet. I feel like let him play this season out. Let him get comfortable in the system, and let's see what happens. But as crazy as it seems, week 2, kind of a must-win for the Browns.
Well, indeed it is. I mean, you can't come out with a performance like that and then come out and lose to the team that everybody is calling preseason the worst in the league. Right now, if you go by week 1, the Browns are the underdog. So you got a lot to prove, and already, I'll tell you what, everybody's throwing ice at the Titanic right now. They want to, there's whispers of they want to trade Beckham. There's whispers of, okay, they're already starting to send their scouts out there to look for quarterbacks. Everybody wants this ship to sink who's on the outside. So it's up to them to make sure it doesn't.
Like Dominic said, they were playing the Ravens. It's not the fact that they lost to the Ravens. There's a lot of other teams that are going to lose to the Ravens this season. It's just how bad they looked against the Ravens. I know the Ravens are a good team, but they just looked terrible against that team. And if you're a number 1 quarterback, drafted number 1 in the draft, not every number 1 draft pick works out, but for me, I'm going to make a lot of people in California mad. Baker Mayfield – sorry, my dogs. Baker Mayfield is like the in and out of the NFL. Everyone tells you when you try in and out, it's going to be the best. But then when you try it, you're just a little bit disappointed because it's not. I don't think Baker Mayfield is a terrible quarterback. I would rather have him on my team than, let's say, Nick Foles. But he's just not building up to what he was built to be.
Speaking of in and out, you guys have you both had In-N-Out and Whataburger?
Yes.
I've had In-N-Out. I have not had Whataburger.
Okay, then it's not a fair question. I'm not going to ask you then. It's not fair. If you haven't had both, I can't ask you.
To answer the question, Whataburger is better.
Okay.
Gotcha. Listen, all I know is this. I've had both. They were both okay to me. I've had better. I'll take Smash Burger over both, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah, I really will. I don't get the absurd amount of mustard that Whataburger puts on their burgers. I don't get it. I like mustard. Don't get me wrong. I don't eat any ketchup on my hot dog, but on a burger, I want more ketchup than mustard. There's no reason that mustard should dominate a burger. There's something wrong with your taste buds if mustard is the overwhelming flavor that you have to have on your burger. Well, with that being said,
for the Browns,
it is
also,
that time of the night. Yeah. Yeah.
For the Browns, it also kind of sucks when your kicker misses a field goal and an extra point. Like, it wouldn't have made a difference in the game, but 38-6 looks way worse than 38-10. So,
yeah, listen.
all around, it's not just Baker. Everyone needs to play better in Cleveland.
Listen, Tom Landry once said, "You can learn a lot from a win, but you can write a book from a loss." Well, they have a whole encyclopedia section after that loss because there was so many phases of the game where they got beaten against Baltimore that, plain and simple, they're going to be studying all day and night before Thursday because they got to beat Joe Burrow and the Bengals. Well, with that being said, it's that time of the night, folks. It's going to be a lot easier to settle this one out because we've already kicked the Eagles fan to the back. He got kicked out before the show, so we're not even counting him in tonight. So yes, we have Philly guys watching. Yeah, I know the Eagles guy let you down. He got duty calls, unfortunately, but nevertheless, the Eagles will not be represented in FaceTime tonight. So I don't have to post any Eagles graphics, so that's a win for me. So I'm gonna give myself a point for that. But anyway, with that being said, tonight's winner and the man who's going to claim all of FaceTime, no do-rag this week. It's just Dominic taking it tonight. And Keith, you're being denied again. This second victory, man.
I told you, I'll keep coming until I get it again.
And I'll keep having you, man. You make some great arguments. I don't know how you're not pulling them off though, but Dominic got you, so I'm bumping you to the back. Dominic, it's yours, man. Go right ahead. 3 minutes of FaceTime.
Oh man, awesome. I think that's opening now. I could do it. Maybe I had a good time to get here for this, but it really wasn't anything else. I could do that. But my take here, I want to give a big shout out to all of you. Maria Taylor is absolutely phenomenal. And it's absolutely warrant and discussing some of the things that she has to do with. I'm not even going to say the name of the man who, not even the man who doesn't have any who's but women in sports, I want to let you know that you are very much appreciated. Individuals like you here and also for what in this whole time and I'm very grateful and all of you are tremendous. Even being here at Messenger Sport, you all are here. You are amazing at what you
do. This occupation and this field is tough enough and competitive enough as it is, and women just have an added difficulty to that because of the stigmas and the sexism that you find. So I just want to give this whole thing as just a shout out to all of the women in sports. You all are tremendous. You all are a big part of the sports world. And you all your contributions are not at least misrepresented or overlooked on this end. I want to make that very clear. You all are wonderful. So thank you all for all the work that you put in. So yeah.
Definitely. I can definitely echo that. What can you say? We got the law firm on the network now. We got Prasad and Prasad. Right. So, if you're not watching Moving the Chains, you are missing out. So by all means, make sure you tune into that. I know Monty has moved over to Tuesday nights. Listen, why not move away from Sundays? If you're a Jets fan, there's nothing to cheer about on Sundays. Might as well talk about them on Tuesday night. So yeah.
Jeff, I mean, which team is worse, Jags or Jets? If they played right now, who are you taking?
Oh, I'm taking the
Jags. By what I've seen week one, the Jaguars, and I'm going to tell you why they're better. Because plain and simple, less was more. All right. They got rid of all of those guys in the offseason, but they trust their draft class. So everybody that they're playing are the guys that they're drafting. They drafted Fournette, but you know what? They drafted a bunch of young guys this year and said, we don't need Leonard Fournette. So they're trusting their scouts, they're trusting their draft room. I give them credit for that. Now the New York Jets. Now that GM came in after the head coach was there, so he's got a lot of cleaning up to do. I still think that whole thing that happened with Adams was, what can I say? That was a mistake to me. You don't let a player like that get away, especially when you're challenged for talent on your defense.
And their starting running back right now is 37 years old. 37.
Listen, man, Frank Gore is different. Okay? Frank Gore is different. He might be 37, but still runs like he's 29.
I mean, I'm not mad at him. I mean, it's cool that he's a running back at 37, but he's also 37 and the starting running back for your team. That's not a good look.
You would have your starting running back if your head coach was better.
It's very true.
How
long? I was gonna say.
Yeah, remember there was a big feud in the preseason between those guys during training camp where he said, I need to be out there. I need to work. And he kept saying, oh, no, I don't want him getting hurt. And what happens? He pulls a hamstring week 1. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Listen, there were some guys you fire on the way to the locker room. Adam Gase is one of them.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Listen, I'm not going to say that he's not a good coach. I think
I'll say that he's not a good coach.
I'll say he's not a good head coach.
Oh yeah, tremendous offensive coordinator.
I don't know about that either. I'm just saying. I don't know about that. I'm not gonna. No. I'm not jumping on that one either. He may be a good. He may be a good assistant in some factor, in some shape or form. As an offensive coordinator, I was never impressed with him. I think, listen, you could have put 2 monkeys with play cards on the sideline and Peyton Manning would have still ran that offense to the Super Bowl. Okay. So let's be realistic. Okay. The fact that he got a head coaching job, he went to Miami, didn't do anything special in Miami. And he has some talented teams in Miami, and the guy that he said he couldn't win with in Ryan Tannehill almost went to the Super Bowl last year. So, yeah. Okay, so he goes there, he gets the quarterback he wants, he gets the running back he didn't want, although everybody else is saying, why don't you want this guy? And he's rolling snake eyes on every roll.
Yeah, quarterback is into paranormal activity and seeing ghosts on the field every week.
All right. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, Monty, that you have to hear me talk so negatively about the Jets. But okay, so that draft class with Sam Darnold, you had Lamar Jackson, you had Sam Darnold, you had Josh Rosen. Okay, when they said they were locked in on Sam Darnold, I went, okay, and here's why. Sam Darnold that last year at USC coming in was the number 1 quarterback. He was supposed to be the number 1 draft pick, even higher than Rosen, and had 21 turnovers. Okay, not all interceptions. Okay, so usually you don't want your quarterback doing that. He sat out of the combine. I'm not going to throw. He goes to his pro day. Well, most guys, if they like you that much, they're going to say you aced your pro day, unless they're looking to beat you up or it's just really poorly planned. All right, so he goes into the draft. He gets drafted. He didn't have any weapons last year to make you really go, this is the guy. Then the mono thing happens. So if he didn't come out and look very good against Buffalo, who, like them, didn't play any preseason games, has to go through all the same problems, there's something wrong. And it's not just offensive coordinator. Okay, he is just not going to be a special quarterback. I didn't have a first-round grade on him. Right? He's not a special quarterback. He could probably be a good quarterback in the future. But a good quarterback for the Jets would be Ken O'Brien, and that was a good quarterback for the Jets. These guys are good. They're just never going to be great. And Sam Darnold, to me, is not going to be a great quarterback. It was nice that people liked him. But there were guys, people like Matt Leinart too. Did he ever turn out to be great? No. Mark Sanchez.
I'm a huge USC fan, but when's the last time a quarterback from USC did really well in the NFL?
Carson Palmer.
And that's
if that's your ceiling, then that's not a good look for you.
That's the last USC quarterback that had a good career. He had a good career. You know, granted, you know, he didn't win any Super Bowls, but listen, I don't think you have to win a Super Bowl to have a good career.
That's true. But yeah, quarterbacks that turn the ball over in college, I've never understood why people can't understand that. If you turn the ball over in college, what makes you think that magically you're going to turn it down in the NFL where the talent level is top tier every week? That was my same with Jameis Winston coming out of college. So
the talent level's top tier, not to mention the defenses get tougher. They're harder to read. You get more coverages, more looks, stuff that you don't get from college players. And if your quarterback is having issues holding on to the football too long and getting hit for fumbles, if he's throwing interceptions because he's unsure of coverage, as he was in that bowl game when he threw the pick six to the safety sitting right there in a slant lane, you know, I mean, I'm sorry, I just evaluate him. I don't tell him how to play the game. I'm sorry, but yeah. it is what it is, but nevertheless, you know, we're ready for week 2. What games are you looking for this weekend? You looking forward to?
For me, I'll start the first game, the Bengals and the Browns. It is by all conventional wisdom stupid to say that week 2 is a must win, but if they don't win that game, there is going to be mayhem in the streets of Cleveland if they don't win that game.
What about you, Dominic?
So I'm looking forward to seeing the Bucks. I think a lot of people were a little quick to jump off of the Bucks bandwagon because they lost to the Saints, which are one of the 4 best teams in the league. But like I said, and we kind of talked about this in our own chats. You know, I wasn't scared from what I saw from the Bucks. I think week 1, you played a really great team. You obviously have a quarterback who's still getting on the same page with the rest of that talented roster. And they had 3 turnovers, 21 points were scored off of those turnovers, and they still only lost this game by 11 points. Like, Tampa Bay is going to be just fine. I'm interested to see what they do this week against the Panthers. I feel like Tom Brady's going to come back scorched earth. I think Tom Brady kind of likes when coaches hold him accountable. Bruce Arians kind of came out and was like, hey, Tom's got to play better. But everyone that's freaking out about Tampa Bay, calm down. This is probably the worst that they're going to look all season. They're only going to get better from here.
I'll say I never was on that bandwagon, so it made me feel really good when he looked so terrible on Sunday. But at the same time, I mean, it is Tom Brady. He is one of the best quarterbacks in many people's books, the best quarterback in NFL history. They're not going to look that bad every week. And honestly, I think Bruce Arians probably went a little too hard at Tom Brady. I mean, it wasn't like he was the only one playing terrible on that team that day.
Yeah, Mike Evans didn't play great either. The game I'm looking forward to is New England traveling to Seattle. And to me, I want to see now if that New England offense can put up enough points to beat Seattle. We know Seattle's going to score some points. No matter how good New England's defense is, Russell Wilson is the anomaly. So he's going to put up some points, and if he can get them over 20, can Seattle's team defense hold up? Because honestly, Seattle gave up a lot of garbage yards, granted, but they gave up a lot of yards to Matt Ryan. And I mean, let's be realistic. At that point of the game, you give up a lot of yards. You're going to give up a lot, but the touchdowns were the problem. They kept giving up touchdowns. And the one weakness in Seattle's defense this year that's not traditional to Seattle is their pass rush is not special. There are no more Michael Bennett's on that front. There are no more Cliff Avrils and all those guys. You know, I mean, now they have guys like Benson Mayoa, who's a guy that's been passed around so much he's grown handles. So it's just plain and simple that, you know, they are using a bunch of guys. They're doing that Rod Marinelli. I'm just going to throw a wave of bodies at you, and hopefully they get to you. Well, the guy they got to get to now is a 6'5", 240-pound quarterback that can run them over and stiff arm him off because he's as big as they are. And that's Cam Newton. Is he going to throw the ball more this week? Or are they going to continue to go with that? Yeah, we're going to control the tempo, we're going to control the game, and we're going to let our defense and special teams keep you from scoring a lot of points. Interesting to see what happens. And you won't have the 12th man at full throat like you normally would. So it's going to be really interesting with that game. So that's going to be one of the things I'm anxious to see. But once again, congratulations, Dominic, on another win. Keith, listen, come back until you get the second one. Then you keep coming back till you get the third. All right, I'm going to bump you guys to the back so we can sign this off. All right, so episode 10 is in the books. We are back next week at 9 o'clock with another great show for you. Enjoy week 2 of the NFL. Enjoy another week of college football. And we will see you guys next week. Jeff Barnes signing off for No Huddle Necessary.